Okay, what's up, guys? We're back, and today we're going to continue doing what we were working with last time, which was variables. So we're going to actually be making a little health system and something to give us some damage and show a little bit better how the variables work, as well as, setting up a little health regen system and some damage here. So what we're going to start off by doing is adding an actor. We're going to make a blueprint, and this is going to be what's going to damage us. So I'm just going to call this damage BP here. Okay, so inside our damage BP, I'm just going to add a collision sphere. This is kind of similar to what we did last time. So I'm going to add that, and I want to throw it in the map so I can see how big it is. We'll just put it in the middle here, and I'm just going to make it a little bigger. Okay, so we have our damage sphere in the map. I'm going to go to the event graph here, and we're going to delete those starting nodes because we're not going to need them. I'm going to right click on my sphere collision that I just made, go to add event, and we're going to add on component begin overlap. So now when anything collides with this, what I'm going to do is we're going to do applied damage. Okay, and for the damage, I'm just going to do, we'll say 10. Now it's asking for the damaged actor. So what this means is, who are we applying the damage to? So what we're going to do is connect that to our other actor, which means whatever other actor overlaps, we're going to be applying the damage to that actor. And then for the damage causer, because sometimes you get errors if you don't have this, I'm just going to get reference to self, which means that this blueprint we're in, the damage BP is going to be the one dealing the damage out, and then the damaged actor is going to be the other actor component. And the amount of damage is going to be 10. So I'm just going to compile that, save that, and then if we go into our player character here, what I'm going to do is we're just going to get some room off to the right here. And I'm going to do something called event any damage. Okay, so whenever the player takes any damage, this node is going to fire. So because we're applying damage here, it's going to get sent to the player, and then the player is going to know it's getting damage, and it's going to fire this. What we can do out of here is now we have the damage amount that we're getting. So from this blueprint, we set it to be 10, which means whenever we overlap that, we're going to be getting 10 damage getting passed through here. So let's make a variable. We'll call this our health, and I'm going to make that a float. What we're going to do is we're going to end up setting this. Okay, so since I just made the variable, I'm going to compile it, set the default to be 100. So we'll start with 100 health. Okay, and then what we're going to do is we want to get our health. So whatever our current health is, we want to get. Can drag off and hit minus to get a subtract. And then we're going to plug the damage in, and we'll plug the result of that into our health. So if we do this here, we're going to say on any damage, we're going to be setting a new health. And then the health we're going to be setting is going to be our current health minus the damage that we have coming in. I'm going to throw a print at the end, and then we're going to print the value of our health. And let's just see what happens with this. And actually, I'm going to up the damage a little bit. I'm going to change that to 20 just to kind of speed things up a little bit here. So I forgot to make the sphere visible in the game here. So I'm going to uncheck hidden in game from that, so then we can see where that collision is. So now we run into it, and you can see it's printing 80, 60, 40, 20, and now 0. There's still something else I want to add to that, because we're at 0 right now, and then if I run into it, you can see we're going minus 20, minus 40, minus 60. So I don't want that to be going minus. So what we can do is go to the first person character. We're going to do something in between here. I'm going to drag off, and we're going to do a clamp float. So then what this is going to do is just clamp our value. So we can tell it what we want to clamp it to. I don't want my health going over 100 or below 0. So it's going to keep it in between 0 and 100. So now if I plug that in and we try it again, you can see once we get down to 0, now if I go back in, it's going to stay at 0. It's not going to go below 0. So now when we get our damage, we're minusing the damage from our health. We're clamping it, setting that as our new health. So we already have a little basic health system in here. I'm going to make a custom event here. I'm going to just call that damage. Okay, now we can leave all this stuff here. That's not really an issue. But another thing we can do to kind of keep stuff a little cleaner, a little more organized too, is I can put all this down into this damaged code. So that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to disconnect the damage coming into it. We're just going to drag this down here. So now when I take damage, I want to call this event. So I'm going to drag off and say damage. And there is my call function damage right there. But now we have one issue here because we have the damage amount that we have to get in here. So we can easily do that by selecting our custom event. I'm going to add an input on it, and we're going to call that damage. And I'm going to make that a float. So now, as you can see, I have this pin here for damage, and I also have the pin here where I'm calling it. So now I can just connect that damage up. So now when we take any damage, we're going to call this event and pass the damage to that event. So then this event will fire. And then we can just take that damage and feed it in there. So this isn't necessary for this step, but this is just something I just wanted to show because it can help clean stuff up, keep stuff more organized. So we have our damage code here. So now let's make a little health regen code as well. So I'm going to make another custom event here. And we'll just call this one health regen. So now let's figure out what we want to do here. So when we call health regen to work, we want to increase our health. So what we're going to do is essentially set a new health. But what we're going to do is just get our health. We're going to drag off and we're going to just say, I'm going to hit the plus key and get an add. Now we can mess around with this to see how much we want to make this, but we're just going to say something like 5. And then we're going to have the same issue if we don't clamp it. So our health is going to go up over 100. So I'm going to copy this clamp that we made up here and just throw this in right here. And now we're going to be clamped between 0 and 100. And then I can feed that in to my set health. So now whenever we call this event, we're going to be getting our current health, adding 5 to it, clamping it so it stays in between 0 and 100, and then setting that as our new health. So now we have this code here, but we're not calling it anywhere. So after we take damage here, and then what I'm going to do is drag off here, and we're going to do a set timer by function name. Now, if you're using this, you need the name to be exact. So usually I just go up and copy the name of the event. So this is the event I want to fire, the health regen. So I'm copying that name, and I'm going to paste that name right in here. We'll say in 2 seconds. So what this is going to do is after I take damage, it's going to wait 2 seconds and then it's going to fire the health regen. Okay, so the health regen is going to fire and it's going to increase my health by 5, set that to be my new health, but then we're not doing anything else. So it's just going to stop right here. So what I'm going to do is just copy the set timer by function name here, and I'm going to paste it down here. And we'll connect that up. So now after we increase our health by 5, it's going to wait 2 seconds and it's going to call health regen again. So this is going to keep looping now. But we need a way to shut this off because once we hit 100, we don't want to be calling this code to regen our health. So what I'm going to do is before that set timer, I'm going to drag off this set health here. So this is after we add 5 to our health. I'm going to drag off here and do a check, and we're just going to say, are we less than 100? And then I'm going to put a branch in here to do the check. So now after we set our health, we're going to check to see, is our new health less than 100? If it is less than 100, then we're going to come out of true and we're going to fire this health regen. So in 2 seconds, it's going to add more health to us. And it's going to keep looping until we get our health back to 100. And once our health is back to 100, now we're going to come out of false, which is going to stop our loop because we're not firing anything when we come out of false, which means we're not firing this event to refire this whole line of code again. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to throw a print on here. So when we take damage, we're just going to print our health. And what I'm going to do is also print every time we set a new health on our health regen, I'm going to print as well. So the prints are just going to be for tests, just so we can see what's going on here. So let's jump in and check this out now. So we run in, it says we're at 80, now it's going up 85, 90, 95, and it should stop when it hits 100, and it does. So we're no longer printing because that code is no longer firing. If you do want to use some sort of a health regen, it's totally up to you what the time you want and how much you want to regen it. Let's try and put this on the screen instead of using prints. What I'm going to do is just delete these prints out of here. We're going to connect our code back up now. Okay, so we're going to make a quick UI that just has a progress bar on it. So we're going to make a health widget real quick, or I'm just going to call it my main HUD here. And then we'll just add, as this goes on, we'll just add a few more things to it. So I'm going to right click in the content drawer here, and we're going to go to UI, user interface, and we're going to add a widget blueprint and pick user widget. And then I'm just going to call this my main HUD, we'll say. And then I'm going to do underscore WBP for widget blueprint, and we're going to open that up. So now inside of here, I'm just going to search for a canvas panel, and then we're going to drop that into the screen. So now we have a widget that's going to take up our whole screen here. So we can put a progress bar if you want to add things that you're going to be picking up, collecting, doing whatever. Again, this is just for a test. You can set up your widgets however you want, but we're going to throw a canvas panel down, and then we're going to look for a progress bar. So now I'm going to drag the progress bar into the widget. So for me, I'm just going to position this in maybe like the bottom left, and we'll just kind of make it look more like a health bar maybe. We'll do something like that. So that's going to be our little progress bar. So then if we select the progress bar, I'm going to rename that to be, we'll say health bar. So if you come into the details panel here, you'll find where it says %. And you can drag that up and down. So that's going to be what our health bar is going to do. So you can change the color to whatever you want. So I might just change mine to like a red or an orange, something like that. You can set up a health bar to make it look however you want. One thing I might do is just open up the style, go to background image, and then if I change this color, that will be what color it is underneath. If I make that the same color as my bar and then just make it darker, maybe something like that would look a little better. So now we have our progress bar. So we have our progress bar here. So I'm going to just compile that, save it. Okay, so we have that health bar set in our main HUD. So what I'm going to do is go back to my player character now. And then we're going to add a begin play node. So we made our widget, but we need to add it to the character, get it so we can see it on the screen here. So on event begin play, we're going to drag off and do create. We're going to do create widget, and then we're going to pick the widget name we just made. So mine was main HUD. Now I'm going to want to store a reference to this widget in my character because we're going to be pulling and using information from it. So what I'm going to do is right click on the return value and promote it to a variable. We'll just name that main HUD widget. And then after that, we can add to viewport. Make sure you plug in your pin to the target here. So now on begin play, we'll be making the widget, getting a reference to it, and adding it to viewport. So we should be able to see our widget on screen right now. So let's check it out. And we do. We have our widget. Okay, so we have to add the functionality to it now. So I'm going to make a function in my player. And this is going to be, we'll just call it update health. And before I can actually do this, I'm going to go back into the widget. And we're going to go into the graph, and we're going to add a function in here as well. And we're going to call this one, we'll call this set health here. Okay, so we have a function in here called set health. I'm going to click on the set health, and we're going to add an input to it. And I'll call that health, and we're going to make that a float. So now this is going to be the health that's coming from the player, which we're going to set up. So we're going to want to get our health bar. We're going to drag off and do set %. And we'll connect that. And then we're going to drag off our health. And what we want to do is divide by 100. And this will give us our percentage. Plug that in there. Add a return node to the end of the function. We should be done in here now. So we're going to save, compile that, go back to the first person character. And now inside the update health function on the first person character, I'm going to get the reference to the main HUD widget that we got. And I'm going to call that function that we just made in here in the widget. So mine was called set health. So back from the player, I'm going to drag off this and we're going to call set health. Okay, and now I'm going to pass my player's health into it. So we're going to get that variable and we're going to pass that in. And then just return out of the function. And then compile and save that. So now we have to call this update health function that we made. When our damage code fires and sets the new health for our player, that's when I want to call this. So I'm going to just drag out my update health function and just plug that in right here. And I also want to set it when my health regain adds health back to the player. So I'm just going to get a little bit of room here. And we're going to drag that in here too. So let's compile everything and check it out and see how that works. So if we run in, you can see that we take damage and then our health bar starts going back up. So we have a working health bar now. And really quick too, now that we've finished this stuff and everything is in and working, what we can do is actually comment it. So if I grab, this is my health regen code here. So if I grab this and just hit C, I can comment it, and then we can call this our health regen. And then what I can do is just check the show bubble when zoomed, and then now it lets me kind of grab the whole window and move that whole line of code around if I want. And then something else that I never really noticed when I first started out either, it might be obvious to some people, but you can actually put little notes on every one of these nodes that are in here. So for example, if you're not sure what your clamp is doing, you can click this little thing right here and you can say clamp health from 0 to 100. And then if you forget what this is doing, you can say that this is function to update widget. Use these whenever you need to be able to remind you what you're actually doing here. But yeah, so I think that's going to be it for this time. So thanks for watching and we'll see you next time.